questions. Can the ceasefire in Gaza evolve into a durable solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Will Syria's new government bring stability and inclusivity for its people and security for the wider region? How will Iraq manage its relationship with Syria, with Iran, and with the new Trump administration? Will the deal-maker-in-chief cut his own version of a deal with Tehran? It isn't clear as we speak today what Donald Trump's policy in the Middle East, the wider Middle East, will be, save for saying that he wants peace in the region and that normalisation deals, he says, are key to that. What is clear is that, like it or not, the region is... Donald Trump's policy in the region will have huge consequences. But since his last term, the region does have a new dynamic, regional solutions for regional problems. At least that is the narrative. Enter Dateline, Riyadh, Doha, Abu Dhabi, Ankara. What influence will we see from these countries? And what role Europe in the region's shifting dynamics? There is a lot to unpack with what is my expert panel today. Ayman al-Safadi is the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Jordan. Fouad Hussein is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iraq. Asad Hassan al-Shaibani is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Syria. Varsan Aghabigian is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Palestinian Authority, and Jean-Noël Barrot is Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France. Right. Let's start with a very simple question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you that we can lower the temperature in the Middle East, in the region, in 2025? Ayman.
Well, you want to give us 45 minutes to address all of that. Good luck to you and all of us doing this. I think, look, we have opportunities. If everybody do their part right, I think we can lower the temperature. We've already seen significant changes in many parts of the region. We have the ceasefire in Gaza now, which we all must do everything we can to make sure it holds. So I think if everybody does their bit, I think we're really facing a very, very good opportunity to move forward. I'm reluctant to put a percentage. I know you're going to push me. But I think if we all do our parts, we have an opportunity that we haven't had for a long time now.
Cautious optimism.
Cautious optimism.
Fouad.
I must be realistic about this. We have got challenges and opportunities. Opportunities because we have got already ceasefire in Gaza, ceasefire in Lebanon. Is it possible to transfer or change the ceasefire into peace agreement? Is it possible to transfer the ceasefire in Lebanon into peace agreement with Lebanon? These are questions. These are challenges. Anyhow, we have got some opportunities nowadays, but at the same time, the change in Damascus also offers many opportunities. So how are we going to deal with that? All of us, in the first place, of course, the Syrian people, but also the situation in Syria is interconnected with the situation in Iraq and Jordan and other countries.
So on a scale of 1 to 10? How optimistic are you?
Anyhow, as I said, these opportunities, they are first steps towards some solutions. But at the same time, we must be realistic about the change of the administration in Washington and the situation in Iran. So
cautious optimism.
There is another challenge which is ahead.
Minister.
Yes. Depending on what happened in Syria, of course, we are very optimistic for the future of Syria. Regarding our country, we can say that we are 1 of 10. We can say 10. And regarding for the Middle East, we can say 8 to 9. And regarding to the world, we can say 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister Barrot.
So I would say 5 out of 10. I think we've gone half of the way by lowering the temperature in the Middle East over these past few weeks with a ceasefire in Lebanon, a ceasefire in Gaza, a regime change in Syria. But all this will only be sustainable if this comes with political solutions. So putting an end to brute force that gave way to diplomacy and negotiation was a very important and significant first step. but there is still a lot of work to do to make sure that this is durable and sustainable.
Fasten.
I'm also cautiously optimistic, but I will say 6, but under the condition that there is a new outlook on what peace entails and what a genuine peace process means.
Right, so thank you. I'm pleasantly surprised, but perhaps I shouldn't be, that we've got some cautious optimism. I mean, I said more than cautious optimism, but that's good. That's a good place to start. So, Fasten, let's come back down this line and start with Gaza. How confident are you that this deal will go beyond even this first week of this first stage, and that we can, in any way, expect to get a durable peace at the back end of it? And what role Donald Trump now as new US president?
Well, things are very unpredictable and it can go either way. But what we hope as Palestinians, and for saving lives, that this ceasefire becomes a permanent position that would lead us to something bigger. Now, President Trump is a key player. And the USA can do a lot, and we've seen it in the last week. So, but President Trump and the team in the United States need to, again, understand what it means to have Palestinians have a palatable peace process. A palatable peace process means understanding the rights of the Palestinians.
Is it your sense that they care?
Rights. They can if there is enough work from the region, from our brothers and sisters, from the international community, on talking about the durability of a sustainable peace. If you want a sustainable peace, then it has to have parameters that are different than what was thought before on either continuing the status quo in the Middle East or really achieving a sustainable peace.
So what you're saying is we cannot just dust off what was a Kushner plan back in 2020 for a solution to the conflict.
Yes, what was there on the table in 2017, 2018 will not bring us peace. Not for the Palestinians, not for the Israelis, not for the region.
Ayman, how confident are you about getting through this first stage and a push towards a day after deal?
Look, I think we're going to see a bottom-up pressure from the people on both sides to ensure that the ceasefire holds, because, you know, we cannot forget the hell it has been last year for everybody. So I think as we see the first stage implemented, I think people are going to see the benefit of sticking to the deal, and I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on the politician. I think it is key that also we understand that there is real misery on the ground in Gaza, so being able to bring into Gaza sufficient aid on scale, in time, is something that's going to be extremely important in creating an environment that would push even harder for the solution, for the ceasefire to hold. In general, I think we got all to learn from the past. We cannot just keep doing what we did before and expect things to go in a different direction. That's not going to happen. Ultimately, we cannot go to pre-October 7 reality, because it is the reality that is the context in which what has happened since then happened. So I think we've got to look at what is it that we can do to make sure that nothing that has happened on and 6 October 7 happens again. And for that, we need to give political horizon. We need to restore hope. We need to navigate through the dehumanization and hatred that has taken root in a much, much deeper way. And we need to offer a solution. I think a key factor here is the new Trump administration. And let's be honest about it. It was the Trump team that pushed the parties across the finish line for the deal. President Trump is saying, I want to be a peacemaker, and that is something on which we're fully aligned, with which we're fully aligned, and we're going to be partners for President Trump in pursuing a peace. We have to understand what would it take to ensure that that peace lasts and is comprehensive and it's just and it is fair and it is peace between people, not just official documents signed. And for that to happen, people have to accept it. And for people to accept it, it has to address the legitimate rights of Palestinians, one last thing, for freedom and statehood, and also address Israel's concern about security and positioning in the region. I think we can do that. We have enough solutions that have been put on the table. As I told you before, Becky, we're not short on ideas, we're short on will. Are we going to garner that will and act together collectively in the region, in Europe, in the United States, across the world, and take advantage of the new spirit of hope that we see in the whole region, in Lebanon, in Syria, and other places?
I was in Doha on the announcement of the ceasefire. Steve Witkoff was there. He was in the room with the Prime Minister of Qatar. He clearly has a very good relationship with him. As we understand it, he may go into Gaza to try and ensure the implementation of at least this sort of second stage of the first phase, as it were. But Donald Trump has already said he isn't confident that this deal will hold, this truce will hold. Does that worry you?
Look, I mean, there is a chance it will not hold. We're already seeing some signs of failure to commit to what was agreed on in the deal. But I think it is in everybody's interest that the deal holds. I think we have an opportunity in which we can build. And if it doesn't hold, then what's the alternative? And as we talk about Gaza and the risk of the ceasefire not holding, which is dragging not just Gaza into hell again, but dragging the whole region into the anxiety and uncertainty and chaos that we've seen, there is also the West Bank on which we need to keep an eye. What's happening with the West Bank is extremely dangerous. As Gaza, you know, sort of witnesses a degree of end of fighting, we don't want to see that fighting at the West Bank leading to its explosion, because if it does, then we'll find ourselves in the same place. What I want to say is that I think history has proven that security approach will not solve the problem. How many years, decades, has Israel relied on security approaches to ensure that there's no re-eruption, and it did not work. So now I think I go back to what John Wells said. We need a political solution. We need a political vision. We can all rally around it in a very pragmatic, practical way, and anchor it in an understanding that in order for the peace to hold, to be real, all sides have to feel that they've got their legitimate rights fulfilled. And that's something to which in the region, in Europe, and I think everywhere else, we're fully committed.
You and I have been talking on an almost daily basis over the last 18 months about your concerns about the conflict in Gaza metastasizing. It's been, you know, it's been really sort of, you know, good to see what's happened in Lebanon, what's happened in Syria. We're going to find out from you, Fouad, you know, what the perspective is from Baghdad. But I see where you're at on what's going on in the West Bank at present. And Varsan, let me just bring you in back in here before I get to everybody else. Despite, or maybe because of the ceasefire, Israel has launched a significant operation in the West Bank, particularly in Jenin. Are these acts, to your mind, meant to further undermine the PA in the eyes of the Palestinians on the West Bank? Seen by some, the PA is seen by some as collaborators with Israel at present, just as conversations about what the day after in Gaza might look like. What's your sense?
I think what is happening in Jenin is very unfortunate, and it's a deliberate attempt by Israel to undermine the Palestinians in general, and we're hearing it. They don't shy away from voicing it. They're telling us very clearly, we're done with Gaza for the time being. We don't know for how long, because they are also voicing that they are going back into Gaza. But now it's a time on the West Bank, and we will do on the West Bank what we have done on the Gaza Strip. And this is very worrying for the Palestinians. We were trying, the Palestinian Authority was trying to contain the violence on the West Bank, but now the Israelis come in and they certainly undermine everything the Palestinian Authority was doing.
Asad, I'm going to bring you in here at this point. I think it's important that we don't park the Gaza story, clearly don't park the Israel-Palestine conflict, and don't park any conversations we might want to have about the day after at this point. But Asad, you are here, Minister, in Davos for the first time, representing a transitional government in Damascus. It says it has come to power for all Syrians and for a new Syria. What does the international community, especially the new Trump administration, need to do to support this government? And how do you guarantee to Syrians and the international community, from whom you are expecting a great deal of help, that you are willing to work both internally and around the region to help ensure security?
Yes, thank you. First of all, what's happened in Syria, we are now in 50 days. We bring the hope for all the Syrian people, and also we bring the hope for all the world and for the region. And we were bombed and tortured and displaced during 14 years. And what happened, of course, it brings stability and security for Syria and for all the region and the world. Of course, what we are looking for from the Trump administration that to support the stability and security by removing the sanctions imposed on the Syrian people, and also all the Syrian people has expectation, positive expectation from the new administration regarding the supporting the political process and also supporting the new road and new future of the Syria.
So, Minister, let me stop you there. How much contact have you had with this new administration? Clearly, it's only 4 days old, but I mean, it's been, you know, in a stage of transition now for a couple of months. And how realistic do you believe it will be that some, if not all, sanctions will be lifted?
Yes, the sanctions now, it's turned into against the Syrian people. In the past, the sanctions imposed against the Assad regime because of the torturing people inside Naya and other prisoners. But after the overthrow of the Assad regime, it turned against the Syrian people. But now, removing sanctions, it's the key actor and the key of our development vision, and also it's the key for a new road for the Syrian people.
What contact have you had with the members of the new administration, if any? Have you been in contact?
Yes. Yes.
What are they telling you?
It's important actor in the region, and who want to perceive the stability and security in the region, they should talk with Damascus.
Have they been in contact with you?
Yes.
Yes. Can you give us any sense of what's been said?
No.
Fair enough. Let me bring Minister Fouad Hussein in at this point. I'm coming back to you. You've been instrumental in navigating Iraq through complex regional dynamics, advocating for national sovereignty and for regional cooperation. What is your view about what is going on in Syria? What danger do you believe there is in any instability that there may be there spilling over into your country? And again, what's your perception of where the Trump administration's policy will lie in the Middle East going forward? I mean, you will need to speak to the new Trump administration. You will need to talk about US troops in Iraq. What's your sense?
Let me first mention that the Syrian security and Iraqi security are very much interlinked. And that has to do with the past, but also the current situations. And we had good discussion with my colleague As'ad about the security situation inside Syria, but also security situation inside Iraq, and the point which we have mentioned, or the subject which we discussed, had to do with the ISIS fighters inside Syria. In fact, we have seen that ISIS territory has been extended inside Syria. ISIS fighters and terrorist fighters, they were able to control more weapons because of the fact that Syrian army collapsed. So they collected a lot of weapons, and some new elements joined ISIS. That's according to our information. And the ISIS terrorist fighters, they are on our border as well as on the border with Jordan. So that point is worrying us, and I guess it is worrying also our friends in Damascus. We need a kind of cooperation, how to deal with this threat, because the threat, it is true, they are on the other side of the border, but they have got also their people inside Iraq. So that is one of the issues. The other issue is, of course, as we mentioned many times, stability in Syria. it will be in the benefit of the Iraqi people and Iraqis. So we hope that, and we respect the will and wishes of the Syrian people, but at the same time, this new situation, the current situation in Syria, it needs cooperation and with various countries and Iraq is included. We are ready to cooperate with the new administration in Syria, and we hope that they will have some steps towards establishing a political process, and the political process which we are talking about has to do with the being inclusive. And when we are talking about inclusive, we are talking about the various components in Syria's society, because at the end, stability, it means stability in all parts of Syria. Stability, it means stability for all components in Syria.
And let's talk about northern
Syria.
We are
not talking only about Damascus. I'm talking about various areas in Syria.
Yeah, and let's talk about northern Syria. We know the US-backed Kurdish forces in northern Syria are under increasing pressure at present from Turkey. Do you think Ankara will launch an offensive against these groups? And if they do, what is your positioning on this?
No, that will be dangerous. Why? For many reasons. In the first place, if there will be an attack on that area, so we are talking about, I guess, 20% of the Syrian area, which is under the control of Syrian democratic forces. Fighting in that area, it means more refugees coming to Iraq. We have got now 250,000 refugees from Syria, but in fact, these are registered. But in fact, we have got perhaps 700,000 Syrians in Iraq. So that means more refugees inside Iraq. Fighting in that area, it will threaten the prisons in that area. As it is well known, there are 26 prisons in that area, which is under control of the Syrian democratic forces. And in these prisons, we have got between 10 to 12,000 terrorists from ISIS and Al-Qaeda there. So imagine if those will be free or they will be released. Many of them, they are Iraqis. The others, they are Syrian and from other nationalities. What does it mean for ISIS, and what does it mean for the security in Iraq? And in fact, what does it mean for Syrian security? So there are many threats in that area. So that's why we hope that there will be negotiation. There were some contacts and discussion between Syrian Democratic Forces leaders and
do you expect
HTS leaders, but we hope that these negotiations, the process of negotiation will continue and they will reach some understanding.
Do you expect the brokered deal to withdraw US troops from Iraq will continue under this Trump administration? And at present, as we wait to see whether Donald Trump will broker his own deal on and with Iran, what's your perspective of how you might re-navigate your relations with Tehran?
And
2 questions.
It was a question for me. You see the first part of your question, how the new administration in Washington is going to deal with the U.S. troops in that area and in other areas. Of course, this is a question for the American to answer. But I think my belief is that they will be there. They will be there because the whole entire situation in Middle East is different than the first, let's say, Trump first administration. Now we are dealing with different challenges. And so I have the feeling that they will be in the area. And as for our relationship with the new administration, our relationship with the American government, American administration is based on the strategical agreement which we have. And on the basis of that framework, we will continue our talks and negotiation with the American side on various fields.
And with Tehran?
As for Tehran, of course, that is a question to the Iranian. But the tension between Washington and Tehran, it affects us directly, not indirectly. In fact, that's why we are rather worried about the tension, and we hope that both sides will choose different approach, and that's the approach of, once again, negotiating. But until now, I don't see any signal from Washington that they are ready to negotiate with the Iranian side, while the Iranians are giving that signal.
Well, let's see. Well, let's see. I mean, there's a chief deal maker who says that he wants to cut deals all over the place. So let's see how long it is before we start seeing the emergence of something on Tehran, if at all. Minister Barrot, let me bring you in here. I gave you a chance to sort of, give us a starter for 10 earlier on. So having listened to what we've heard from the panellists here, can you just share your assessment of where you see Gaza, perhaps more importantly, your perspective on the developments in Lebanon, and how France plans to support that government going forward. And then critics say that European countries don't have the political will or capital to chart their own foreign policy goals separate from Washington. What do you say to those critics when it comes to Syria, Lebanon, Iran, in a Trump era 2.0?
So first I say that this is not true, even though, of course, for all of us, the US are a key partner, but we're sovereign in our foreign affairs policy. And even though we constantly talk one with another, and we often agree, it sometimes happens that we are exactly aligned, but this doesn't prevent us from working together. Why do European countries care about what's happening in the Middle East, about the temperature in the Middle East? Well, because our national interests are indexed on the temperature in the Middle East. Among the key preoccupations of European citizens today is security and terrorism. As far as France is concerned, 10 years ago there was a massive terrorist attack that was initially prepared in Syria under the regime of Bashar al-Assad and by ISIS forces. At the moment when there are being a lot of talks in Europe about migration, well, these talks, they initiated in 2015 when the Syrian people, by millions, they fled from Syria, they fled the regime of Bashar al-Assad, and they found asylum in Turkey, in Jordan, in Lebanon, but also in Europe. So everything that happens in the Middle East, because we have the Mediterranean in common, so to speak, is of great interest to us. And that's why we see ourselves as partners in good times as in bad times. And I want to remind people here that France hosted the first humanitarian conference in Gaza 1 month after the 7th of October. And France also hosted the first international conference in support to Lebanon 1 month after the ground operations of Israel into Lebanon started. And now that we've achieved ceasefire, and get back to that, alongside with countries of the region, Arab countries, countries for the Gulf, we are willing to participate, whether it's Gaza, Lebanon, or Syria, in the reconstruction of those countries and to consolidate the political solutions that will go alongside those reconstruction efforts. As far as Gaza is concerned, it's been said already, it's a huge relief that there is a ceasefire that puts an end to the brute force that destroyed a huge part of Gaza, that made so many civilian deaths, and that allowed the partial release of hostages, and we're waiting desperately for the release of our 2 French hostages, hopefully in the weeks to come. Phase 2 will be challenging, because we'll need to find a way for a civil administration of Gaza once Israel troops retrieve, and we'll need to start working on the 3rd step, which is the political solution that Ayman alluded to. And we're already working with Saudi Arabia and partners from the region ahead of the UN International Conference that will be held in June of 2025 in New York and co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France.
What does France bring to the table? What's the offer?
We helped alongside, and I want to commend especially the efforts of Jordan, Gaza, but we also helped foster humanitarian help among European countries during this international conference that we hosted. We're also in the front line to support the Palestinian Authority. We're one of the rare countries in the world to directly support the Palestinian Authority. And moving forward, we'll be here alongside countries in the region to try and solidify this political solution. We have not yet recognized the state of Palestine because we've said that this recognition needs to come at a time when indeed we get closer to the draft of a two-state solution with mutual recognition and security guarantees.
That's not going to happen before June. So, I mean, we may be
We're going to work hard
from that.
We're going to work hard for this June conference to be a decisive step towards an irreversible path towards the two-state solution. And as far as Lebanon is concerned, what do we bring? Well, in Lebanon, we bring our long-lasting relationship with Lebanon that allowed us, alongside the US, to provide a formula for a ceasefire that happened 60 days ago. And that produced and that delivered results. With the mechanism that we put in place with the US, we've been able to operate or to trigger the first retreats of Israeli forces in the south of Lebanon and to push the Lebanese armed forces, supported by the UNIFIL UN mission, to operate the disarmament of Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon. We're 60 days past the ceasefire. Are we done? The answer is no. So we'll need more time to achieve the results. The good thing is that we also, alongside partners of the quintet, facilitated the election of a president for Lebanon. That was an essential condition to be met for the ceasefire to be sustainable, but also for the reconstruction effort to start, and basically for Lebanon or for the Lebanese people to take back control over their own destiny. But as was said earlier in the introduction, what worked in Lebanon is that everyone took their share of the risk, of the effort. Israel put an end to hostilities and now is removing its forces. The Lebanese armed forces went beyond what they had done so far and went actually to places where Hezbollah were storing ammunitions and destroyed those ammunitions. And UNIFIL also did their part.
Right.
And the Lebanese political forces also sort of overcame their reluctance to work together to elect a president. So everybody did their part. That's why we're where we are now. But to do the other half of the way, we need people to keep taking their part of the risk.
Amen.